now.
Welcome,
now
everybody.
Sorry, Aaron.
It's,
Now
no, it's quite all right. No, we're,
okay.
so I was going to let everybody know we're on, we're live, we're on fire. Today, incredibly exciting. This is High and Empowered. We're live on LinkedIn, and we're also right now, I think, on the YouTube and the Facebooky and a few other places you can find us. Today, incredibly excited. We have Eric Asher of Asher's Finest Rosin. And so today, we're talking about single solventless extraction. Today, we're talking about legalization. We're talking about overreaching laws and bills that are being placed after the fact. Today, we're talking with Eric. And so before we go any further, I want Eric to, and also we have Andrew of Dualistic Unity. Thank you for joining us today, both of you. So Eric, please introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do and really your why, your mission statement.
I'd be happy to. I'm a disabled veteran, and I live in Pittsburgh. We got medical cannabis law in 2016. It was called Act 16, but we didn't get any dispensaries or any regulatory framework up and running until 2018. And at that time, we had the most restrictive medical program in the country. There is no smokable cannabis. You can only dry vape it, make edibles, or solventless concentrates with it, which meant that if you had a medical card, you could get a rosin press and you could start making your own concentrates from the flower that you can't smoke. So I became an expert at making solventless concentrates using a rosin press. I call it single stage solventless. The reason I call it that is because it's immediately usable, and it is less expensive to make than washing cannabis into bubble hash and then pressing that into hash rosin. And I started my YouTube channel and my brand Asher's Finest Rosin as a personal brand, so it was identifiable. And I became an educator here in Pittsburgh. I learned as much about this plant as I possibly could, and I've been involved, on and off, a love affair with this plant since 1975. So I just didn't really get into the science and the medicinal aspect of it until much later in my life. But it saved my life in particular, and that's why I evangelize it the way I do. I was the first person in Pennsylvania ever allowed to demonstrate this extraction process in a public venue. And I have done this all over the state of Pennsylvania. I've done it in Michigan. Wherever I'm invited to be, I'll bring my equipment and educate people about this process, because it is really the only way to get good full spectrum solventless concentrate without being able to grow your own, because in Pennsylvania we have no home grow, none. And so patients who want solventless concentrates in various strains that they don't offer at the dispensaries will come to my studio with a quarter of whatever flower that they want made, and I'll press it on my rosin press for them and send them on their way with better medicine. I never charge patients to do that. I never have.
That's huge. That's something I want to talk about as well. And before I forget, when you were saying doing single solventless extraction, do you feel you're getting more out of that on the return than, say, maybe an alkaline wash, bubble hash, kind of extraction?
Well, considering I don't have nearly the experience washing hash as a lot of people who are into doing that do, I can't speak as intelligently about that. The reason I had to specialize in flower rosin is because we don't have home grow. And because we don't have home grow, we don't have enough material to wash into hash and then press that, you know what I mean? So the opportunity for me to learn that process is greatly reduced in this state. So I managed to take flower rosin, which is just as good a medicine. It's just not as clean tasting because it has some of the waxes and lipids that bubble hash eliminates during its process. See, it's the same end result. We're both trying to get the medicinal value minus the chlorophyll and the cellulose. They're just approaching it with wet and cold, and I approach it with heat and pressure. Okay, but where they have to take the time to wash it, then dry it, then microplane it before they can turn it into hash rosin, I can take buds and crush them right into single stage solventless concentrate that is just as full spectrum, just as good a medicine, but takes a tenth of the effort, time, and costs way less on a batch basis. So hash rosin I consider more of a luxury product because of its
I do
price
see it
point.
more luxury now. Well, now we were talking about it the other day, and you were mentioning the size of the micron bag that you're using, and the process of which you're using is a slower, more artisanal, process into it. So, do you see this more as the artisanal side, as the progression of really where we should be extracting instead of doing bubble hash or anything where we start losing flavors and terpenes and whatnot, and the entourage of it being the flavor and the taste and the smell?
I can tell you that I consider rosin, whether it's hash rosin or flower rosin, to be the truest expression of what that plant's flavor profile is, because you're eliminating the combustion from the process. And I don't care how good the weed is, when you burn it, you're changing the flavor profile as you're burning it because you're introducing the products of combustion along with the vaporization that happens and the decarboxylation that happens. So I consider solventless concentrates to be the pinnacle of medicinal as well as recreational product, because it is a full expression, the fullest expression of the medicinal flavor and terpene profile that plant has, and all you're removing from the equation is the cellulose and the chlorophyll that make up the plant material that's holding all the medicine to it. So where hash people take cold and wet and make they brittleize all the trichomes so that they fall off, they gather those in a screen. All I'm taking is a bag, putting the buds in there, crushing it through a 37 micron bag, and coming out with immediately usable single stage solventless concentrate.
You
that
just
is
said 37
indistinguishable
microns.
medicinally. You understand? So when
True.
we're talking about medicine versus recreational, I focus on the medicinal because that's what saves my life. I don't consider BHO or any of those products medicinal in any way. None of them are full spectrum. They'll get you high, they'll get you plenty high, and they taste fantastic. But are they medicine? I don't consider them, though. Okay, I think medicine is
No, the
your
only things that are
solventless
medicine are going to be full
concentrates and
spectrum.
RSO and things
Yes.
like that. You know?
Correct. RSOs are incredible if they're used properly. Look, you can overuse something like you overuse vitamins. I mean, if you're taking too many vitamins, they're no longer beneficial. Same thing with cannabis. I mean, if you overdo it and then you're just, oh, good, the rain just finally stopped. Oh my God. I said that and watch, probably right back again. I think we're like in the middle of a tornado out here. But no, you can overdo it. And that's one of the most important things to know. And you're right. Full spectrum is so incredibly important. I was going to actually, Andrew, have you had the opportunity to have any beautiful, fresh pressed rosin?
I don't think I ever have, honestly. I think I tried. Is rosin? How do you typically smoke rosin? And Eric, just for context, I'm like very new to cannabis. I don't know much about it. So half the time when I'm like hearing about stuff, it's like I don't even know what.
Well, that's why today I brought the Puffco Proxy with me.
He's got a Proxy. I've got a Puffco Peak Pro V2. It's a dabbable concentrate, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some right there.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Now, is that something you
This
pressed, I
isn't. I
imagine?
did not make this. This is rhythm. This is a rhythm concentrate that I bought because I'm waiting to go up to Michigan Friday for the hash bash. I'm going to be up in Ann Arbor, partying with some people up there for hash bash. But my favorite dispensary is in Adrian, Michigan, and I drive 4 hours just to buy my medicine there because they have some of the best hash rosin. They have the best variety and price point I've ever seen anywhere in Michigan. And it's just a bonus that they're only a 4 hour drive away. So I'm looking very forward to
That's
doing
a big
that.
bonus. That's something we haven't gotten here in Florida yet. We really haven't gotten hash. You know,
Oh,
that's a big problem because they haven't gotten to experience, you know, hashish at its best. You know, when you've been in a
now, okay,
market for a while, like Colorado, or well, look, you can
there's
cure it. You
there's a
got to
big
roll it
difference
like a
now.
dough.
You gotta watch your terminology because times have changed. See, hash, okay, if you're talking to an old guy like me, okay, what I consider hash is what I bought when I was stationed in West Germany from the Turks.
Okay,
Blonde
this is good. No, this
Afghani,
is good to know.
Moroccan brown. It came in sticks. You melted it with your lighter and crumbled it into a bowl, and that's how we smoked our shit back when I was wearing a uniform. Okay, you talk about hash now, and people who think hash are thinking hash rosin. Okay, but flower rosin is also encompassed under that umbrella because again, it's the only two solventless concentrates that you can make. Okay, everything else is either BHO or RSO. You know, and so it stands alone. Regular smoking hash, the old school hash, that's not nearly as popular a product as your hash and flower rosins because smoking it is very nostalgic and it's delicious, but it isn't the healthiest way to get your medicine in you. You know, the
I'm
whole
glad you
product's a
mentioned. No,
combustion thing.
that's important that you just mentioned that because right there, a lot of people don't know that you've got different options when it comes to cannabis. And I actually have an article that's coming out. I wrote that's I'm going to put out on LinkedIn probably later today or tomorrow, but it's talking about my transformation from smokable to more edible to maybe our drink market. Um, I'm finding, look, the older I get, it's carcinogens. If I'm using a lighter, then that's butane contamination. If I'm if I'm smoking out of a pipe, which you said, it's tasty, it's nostalgic, it gives me a quick, you know, buzz, and I'm like, oh, I love that. That's great, but it doesn't last very long. And in that heat, I'm burning off all the cannabinoids. So everything that's beneficial for my body, I'm burning right off. So yes, it's important to talk about concentrates. Being if I still want to smoke, I'm going to use an electric device. Why? Because I'm not going to have those carcinogens. I'm not going to have butane contamination, and I'm able to taste and experience the product in its fullest nature. Please go ahead. I'm sorry. I just jumped right in there.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it is important that see, and again, I'm not trying to yuck another man's yum. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, this plant is medicinal whether you smoke it, eat it, whatever. Okay, and I'm not trying to tell somebody they're wrong because they just like to smoke flower. I run into a lot of people that end up trying to tell you that your way of doing it isn't the right way or the best way. And I'm telling you that whatever way you feel best getting that medicine into you is the way that you need to be doing it. Some people can't handle dabs, some people can't handle edibles, and some people are lacking an enzyme in their liver and they don't get affected by edibles at all. Okay, I know people who can take massive amounts of edibles and are not affected because they're missing their, whether it's genetic or not, I don't know, but they're missing an enzyme that does that transmutation from delta 9 to oxyhydro 11, and that if you're missing that, you're not going to enjoy edibles. So not everybody is going to enjoy the same delivery method. Okay, I'm just telling you that for me, for the way my lungs are damaged from my Gulf War service, I can't smoke flower. So I had to find a way that was going to work for me and that I could titrate up or down the way I needed to. I found that to be dabbing. Okay. And you know, at first when I did my first dab in 2016, so I knew the minute I did that first dab, and it was some nasty poop soup somebody made, some shit in their house. I just knew because it hit my body, bam, right away. And then when I tried my first solventless dab, holy crap, it was like a bolt of lightning. And it just, I knew that this was my method of medicating for the rest of my life that I prefer. I like edibles, but I'm more of a dab person than anything else.
I have a quick question regarding the solventless. You said that a few times, as opposed to, was the other thing you were trying is there like a solvent
Yeah,
version?
BHO. Anything that says live or distillate or anything that does not say solventless means that it was extracted chemically. It was extracted using one of many hydrocarbon or CO2, supercritical CO2. But what it wasn't is just direct plant interaction. Now, I've gotten into arguments with hash makers because people who make bubble hash, if you really want to nitpick, water is the universal solvent. So, but they're not dissolving the medicine; they're just using that as a medium for knocking it off the plant material. So it's just kind of a thing that I kind of make fun of when I'm around hash makers, because they look down at people who make flower rosin, because their product in the market commands a higher price. It is much more labor intensive, and it is cleaner tasting, doesn't chaz up your bangers as bad. Okay, but again, I'm not talking about marketability. I'm talking about useful medicinal value. There is no difference whether a hash maker makes bubble hash or I make it from buds into rosin immediately. You run a chemical analysis on them, you will find no difference in medicinal value. So I encourage anybody who has the money to buy a decent rosin press, and I mean, you got to spend about $1,000, okay? And you get yourself an electronic microscope so that you can see up close the trichome head structure and density and anything else that might be wrong with those buds. Because what happens, at least in Pennsylvania, in our program, is that the grower processors, they tumble or roughly handle all of their plant material before packaging. And then they collect up all the keef, and then they sell it to you as a secondary product instead of leaving the medicinal value on the buds. Now, when you're trying to extract rosin from those, you get no yield because all of the trichome heads are gone. So I don't even press flower that I don't put under my microscope first and inspect it for viability, because I'm not going to waste a patient's money or their medicine trying to extract something that is no longer there. Okay.
Wait. So people now, I mean, look, people are bringing to you for, extraction, scientific review. I'm loving this. This is what people need to know about, and they just don't know that process. This is incredible. So you're taking a product, you're putting it under a microscope, you're looking at the of course the word now escapes me. The less I smoked, the more I would have known. That said, at that structure, you're looking at the structure and the viability of it once pressed.
You're looking at the potential viability of extracting a decent amount of product from that flower. And it all depends on, first of all, genetics. Okay. Some of the highest producing strains I ever pressed had huge trichome heads relative to other strains that I pressed. See, that's the thing about making flower rosin that keeps me engaged, is that every strain I encounter, every pheno of every strain I encounter, teaches me something new about the plant. Because, see, I don't approach this as somebody who's trying to maximize yield for the purposes of profit. I approach this a different way. The way I press is unique. I do not use pressure gauges. I do not use timers. I watch what the plant is doing, and it tells me when it's done. You just have to observe it. If you're spending all your time looking at your damn watch or at a pressure gauge, you're not watching what the plant is doing. Every strain is different. I press at the same temperature, but the way I approach my pressing is different than most others. However, I stand on the quality of my product because I do videos and back up everything that I've ever claimed. Every yield is on video on my YouTube channel. And I don't edit my videos. They're all one long take. So you can't say I messed with anything or switched anything out. I got the largest flower rosin single yield from an 8 ever recorded in the world in 2019 up at the Cannabis Cup in Detroit. I went to Reef Dispensary. I bought a quarter of Wonka Bars flower, which was 30% THCA flower at the time, took it back to the hotel, weighed out an 8, pressed it on video, and got 1.53 grams of rosin back from an 1/8 of flower. That's 42% return. Nobody's ever come anywhere close to that.
What is the
Anytime,
average? What's
anywhere.
the average
And
on a
certainly
press?
nobody ever got it on video. So that put me on the map. On the West Coast, I've been invited to the Emerald Cup several times, but I am on a fixed income, and all of my efforts, all of my education efforts, I'm out of pocket for everything I do. So this is a passion project to be a good steward to this plant, to educate as many folks as I can, because once you show that this plant isn't scary, it isn't dangerous, that nothing about this plant is anything but helpful, you change people's minds, and that's how we get laws changed. So I go to wellness expos, I go to farmers markets, anywhere that they will allow me to be, I'm allowed to bring my equipment and do what I do. So I go to convention centers, I do cannabis events, I do wellness events, I go to smoke shops and do events at their places.
I'm sure you've gotten some strange looks, though. I'm sure you've gotten some strange looks at some of the community centers coming in.
Some of the
and they see
coolest things
this
I
press.
did was at a library. I was at a public library in Penn Hills. I was the first cannabis educator ever allowed to give a class. Okay, it was on, and they scheduled it for 10 a.m. on a Tuesday because they didn't want a bunch of people knowing this was even going on. They didn't even promote it. So when I get there, there's 27 people waiting, and they're all seniors. They had all just gotten their medical cards, and they had questions about cannabis and about concentrates. And I was able to really help out a lot of people. See, I don't recommend strains. I don't recommend things like that because I have people all the time. They're asking me, hey, what strain is good for this? What strain is good for that? I have to tell them this. Everybody's body chemistry is different. You and I could smoke exactly the same strain and have wildly different experiences with it, okay? Some people have underlying mental health issues. Some people just, their bodies need a different terpene profile than you do. So I never recommend a strain. However, when they say, I've got 5 strains here, how do I pick the one that I need medicinally? Here's the trick. You don't go after the THC percentage. You don't care what the name of it is. If you got 5 strains in front of you, you smell each one. Whichever one smells the best to you, that's the one your body needs, because your nose is connected directly to your brain, and your body knows your endocannabinoid system craves particular cannabinoid profiles when you have certain health issues. So
this is something I've been talking about for a long time.
Choose their strain based on smell,
100%.
because your nose will never lie to you. You know what I mean?
So
Look, your body tells you what you need. No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, it's straight up just which smells best to you as you go into a spot. Like,
absolutely. If you're faced with 5 different strains and you're allowed to smell them all, close your eyes, smell all 5, whichever one smelled the best. That's the one your body's craving. That's the one that's going to be the most medicinally valuable at that moment for you with what you've got going on. Now, that'll change. You know, it may be what you need right now, but 3 months down the road, you may not have that issue and you may crave a different profile. So I always say lead with your nose. Don't believe the marketing hype. Don't believe the strain names. Indica sativa really is a bullshit dichotomy. Okay, it does not really on a
No, it
biochemical
doesn't. It
level
doesn't
make
encompass
any
the plant in a
difference.
sense.
Okay, that's a marketing thing. Okay, and
True. And when you
it was
look at the
based
plant,
on
I
old
love your smell
information
concept.
on yes, but we all know that all the hybridization that's been happening over the last 5 decades with cannabis means that there are no real pure indicas and pure sativas. They are mostly leaning one way or the other hybridized. So again, I really think that the best way to tell what strain you need is just use your nose. That will never lie to you.
I love that that's what you're saying because it's the truth. Look, you can smell the same thing. For example, today, I just want to let everybody know I'm smoking some unicorn meat. Wow. This shit's absolutely incredible. And if you're in Florida and you're looking for unicorn meat, by the way, to press this stuff, I would love to bring this to you. It's so sticky. It's so resinous. I'm in love and I'm smoking it in honor of you today. But here's the crazy thing. I can smoke something, I can smell it, and I'll say, wow, that's incredible. I'll bring it home, I'll smoke it, I'll love it. And he's right. It's not strain names because they can name it pretty much anything they want to. They can market it to you any way they want to make it appealing. It's not the name of the strain. It's how that strain is going to affect you. I like limonene. I like myrcene. These things work well with my body. But what's the most incredible way to do it? Look, unicorn meat. I went to pick it up a couple weeks ago. I smelled it. I don't want it. It just didn't smell right. It didn't change. It changed for me and for how my body's accepting it. So when he's talking about the strain may be great for, like, if you're doing a sativa or you think it's a sativa or you think it's a hybrid leaning sativa, you may feel as though it's working great for you. All of a sudden it stops working for you. No, your body needs something different. It needs a different terpene. It needs a different profile. It needs a different combination. So I love that that's what you're bringing up as well. It's not THC either. THC is great. But when we get over 20%, we're just getting silly. And we start taking away from the flavor process, from the flavonoid, the terpenes. So
I agree.
absolutely.
And the other thing is, I mean, we're talking about 2 completely different states, but I have a little bit of experience about Florida because from 2004 to 2016, I lived in Gulf County, Florida. I lived in Port St. Joe. Okay, and when I lived there, I was part of the Yes on 2 movement that in 2012 missed it by 2%, and then we got it in 2016, and you guys got medical. Okay, I was part of that group that got that to happen. My time in Florida was unpleasant because of where I was. Okay, I don't know if you know much about Gulf County, Florida, but Port St. Joe and Cape San Blas and Apalachicola and all that, all along US 98, that area is known as the Redneck Riviera. And it's known that because that part of the panhandle, it much more resembles southern Alabama and southern Georgia than it does any other part of Florida. Okay. And I had married a local. That was the only reason I was even in Florida. And I ended up becoming so bored that I ended up wearing a badge down there for like 5 years. I was a state correctional officer, and then I was an auxiliary Gulf County deputy and a transport officer for the Gulf County Jail. And then I worked for the Department of Juvenile Justice in Bay County at Bay Detention as a detention officer for juveniles, all before I got my disability from the VA. Once I got that, I didn't have to work anymore. I was able to devote my attention to learning about cannabis as a medicine. So that's what I did in Florida. but I hated Florida. I hated everything about it. I hated the weather.
Tell me about it. Yes, no. Look, I'm in Florida right now. Tell me about how much you hate it. Because
dude,
right now the weather, I'm in the middle, just so
killed me.
everybody knows, I'm in the middle of a tornado, I think. It
My
could be a
lungs
tornado.
don't deal well with humidity and heat. And it's 9 months out of the year, it's 90 degrees plus and 90% plus humidity all the time. So I always felt like I was breathing through a wet washcloth. And then I've been down to Gainesville. I've been down to a couple other places that I've traveled to Bradenton and stuff like that, but I've never been to South Florida. Most of the Florida that I saw was all very redneck, very racist, very truck nuts and rebel flags, on their trucks and shit. And I just didn't fit in with that sort of environment. So it was very unpleasant for me most of the time I was there. And when I got divorced, I moved right back up to Pennsylvania in 2016. I much prefer it up here in Pittsburgh, actually. I've met some very nice people in Florida. I have some good friends that one of them's running for sheriff in Gulf County right now. But I would not choose to live in that state, especially with DeSantis running that place, because he's a complete piece of shit. He was when he was in the state house when I lived there. He was just a state rep back then. And yeah, I'd known about him for a long, long time. But I can tell you that Florida's got a lot of the same problems that Pennsylvania's having right now, because you guys allowed MSOs to take over your supply chain. Okay, same thing happened in Pittsburgh, but it happened in a really insidious way. When we first got Act 16, it was with the understanding, and actually it was under the regulations, all the companies that were going to be grower processors or dispensaries had to be Pennsylvania owned and operated small to medium businesses. That's it. No outside companies were allowed anywhere near Pennsylvania's market. And it was like that from 2016 to sometime in 2020 when all the COVID shit happened, right? They changed all the rules under emergency declaration or whatever. It did a couple of good things. It let us get certified via video instead of having to go to a doctor's office, that kind of stuff, right? But what they did was they allowed MSOs to come in under these emergency rulings, which didn't require any public notification or comment. All of a sudden, within 12, I'd say 18 months, okay, there were 40 individual grower processors or dispensary companies operating in Pennsylvania, all of them owned wholly by Pennsylvanians. Within 18 months, 4 companies bought out, merged, or eliminated everybody. They own 95% of the supply chain in Pennsylvania. There's only 2 companies I'm aware of that are still wholly owned Pennsylvania. That's PHG, Penn Health Group, and Organic Remedies. Both of those, I believe, are still wholly Pennsylvania, but everything else is one of 4 MSOs. And when that happened, see, I kept a database since the day I started pressing rosin of what these dispensary flower was putting out. So I have an extensive, it went all the way up until mid-2020 when I just stopped keeping records because I stopped pressing the flower. See, the quality went off a cliff. The minute these companies got bought out, they would fire the staff that were growing the flower because the focus went from quality and patient care to profit. So they switched out the nutrients and the way they do things. The whole process has changed, and the quality, even though you were pressing the same strains from the same brands that were no longer their own company, I was getting 30% yields, and then I started getting 22% yields, and it never got any better. And the quality was off, the color was off, the terpene profiles were way off, and it just wasn't as good a medicine. So the whole time now, we were demanding home grow. because Act 16 originally had home grow for medical patients in that provision. In order to get it passed, because the GOP controlled the state house, they eliminated that provision. So we don't have home grow. And they've been promising that every single year since 2016. They blamed it on the state house being GOP controlled, and we had a governor that was a GOP governor.
At least they promise it
no
to you.
excuses.
They don't even promise it to us in Florida. Like, you're not getting it. You're
Well,
not
that's
getting
what
anything.
I'm saying. See,
You're getting
what
what you
happened
get.
was when they let the MSOs come in, they immediately pumped ungodly amounts of money into the state house representatives' reelection campaigns. You get it? So
And
we're
the
never going
MSOs,
to get home grow. Even when they get what they call adult use legalization, they call it legalization. As far as I'm concerned, if you can't grow this plant in your own house, it is not legalization. It's New Jersey. And New Jersey is a dumpster fire. Okay, so they have been corrupted to the core, and I mean everybody at the state house. Okay, so and we're in a commonwealth, so we can't do what Ohio did and get enough signatures to bypass the state house and make them do what you want them to do. See, our legislature is not responsive to the voters because the state it doesn't allow the voters to put a binding referendum on a ballot. Everything has to go through the state house. So now
Is that where it's different in a commonwealth? Because
because in the state constitution it prohibits voter initiated binding referendums. So we don't have the very method that 90% of the states that went full legal used. They got enough voters together and made their state governments heel to their wishes. See, Pennsylvania doesn't have it like that. Neither does Kentucky. We have different ways our state government works differently. So we're stuck with what we're given. We have no sway over our state legislators other than eliminating them. And the problem with Pennsylvania politics is you've got two extremely progressive liberal cities, Pittsburgh on the western side and Philly on the eastern side. But the rest of the state is fucking Trump land. Okay? It is nothing but Trump stickers and very religious and conservative people who vote against their own best interest at every opportunity. Okay, we were told in 2018 by our Auditor General in a 14-page report, it's a public record, you can look it up, that Pennsylvania stood to gain $1 billion year one if we were the first ones to legalize in the region. This is before New Jersey, okay? 2018 now, this report also told them that if we weren't the first ones to do it, if one of our neighbors did it first, we were going to lose $1 billion. And it was going to get worse and worse and worse every single year that we didn't. So they ignored that report completely, okay? And what happened? They let New Jersey legalize. So they shot our state right in the foot and have been continuing to do so ever since because they have been just completely corrupted by these MSOs. They're owned and operated.
So wait. As you're saying that, because this is important. This is so important. People need to hear this for each one of these states.
Yeah.
Before even entering into a recreational market, they enter into a medical market. And those MSOs do come in, multi-state operators. So multi-state operators are very large cannabis companies that operate not in one state, but multiple medical states and recreational states. So
do they tend to be a lot more profit-driven, the MSOs, typically?
I'm sorry, I'm ex-military, so I use a lot of acronyms very freely. MSO just kind of rolls off the tongue. I didn't realize there might be people that didn't know what I was talking about. I apologize for that. But what I'm telling you is you're dealing with that in Florida right now, too, because your entire market
dealing with this in Florida.
This
is how Florida started. With Florida, it's seed to sale. So it could be a tornado. That was crazy. Okay, so I'm in a pretty strong thing. I'm fine. I'm in a bunker, like a 1952 deluxe Spartan. I should be fine. It's like thick steel. We're good. Anyways, you're right. Here in Florida, we started this way: seed to sale. Seed to sale meaning that company controls everything from it growing to the ground to packaging, distribution, pricing, you name it, advertising, which in Florida officially they're not allowed to do, and that's another thing there as well. These multi-state operators are also recreational in other states. And really, everybody has come to Florida waiting for recreational because most of Florida doesn't even know you can still get a medical card. And I just want to mention getting your medical card and staying medical, meaning you're going to be avoiding incredibly high taxes. You're going to be avoiding mass-produced, mass-marketed product for the masses. Yes, you're going to be getting the same crap on the medical side, but it's tested, multi-tested, and you know what you're smoking medically. You're going to have a list, a rundown of the terpenes, the flavonoids, the cannabinoid breakdown, not just THC, not just CBD. Then we start talking about CBCs and CBGA. It's very important you know what you're smoking. That's all I'm saying. You get to a recreational market and you just don't have that much testing, that much accountability, and it gets very expensive. So when these MSOs come in, and please go ahead. No.
Well, see, the thing about the MSOs that the real problem, as I see it, okay, is they lobby against the rights of individuals to grow this plant at home in every state that they operate in. Now, they make public statements and they put these little blurbs up on Instagram and stuff saying, oh, we support this law or that law. But when you look at what they're actually doing in other states, they have lobbied against home grow. They have lobbied against anything other than corporate dominance of the supply chain. They don't want
perfect example right now. The bill that we have.
They don't want individual entrepreneurs to operate in the cannabis space, and that's what we're running into in Pennsylvania. That's what I've been trying to warn people about. Is the fact that we are surrounded now by states that have now legalized recreational and also have the right to grow the plant. So Pennsylvania's market is doomed. It is going to die the death of 1,000 cuts because every state, and if you're in Pennsylvania, you're within an hour of a border, okay? So no matter where you live in Pennsylvania, if you drive an hour to an hour and a half in any direction, you're going to hit a state border and a state that allows recreational use and grow of cannabis. So I tell all these young people that I see that want to participate in the cannabis space, they want to start their own brand, make their name, they want to entrepreneur. I tell them, go anywhere but Pennsylvania. Get the fuck out of Pennsylvania. Go to Michigan, where the cost of entry is low. I don't know how Ohio is going to shake out with their regulatory framework, but considering that they were pretty much forced to do this by the voters, they're not going to make it easy, okay? But Pennsylvania's cost of entry ensures that only large corporate multi-state operators can operate here because the cost of a license or even application is astronomical. The regulatory framework here is some of the most ridiculously restrictive of any state. Okay, we still have state stores for alcohol. You know what I mean? So so we're doomed. And the only reason I'm still here is because my parents both still live in Pennsylvania, are both still alive, or I'd have moved to Michigan 3 years ago, because I saw the writing on the wall when I realized that going to the state house and talking to these legislators has no effect. None of our advocacy organizations, I'm not going to name them, we all know who they are. These,
but are they
corrupted just as bad as the state government is. Okay, they have business interests that conflict with their leadership positions, and they are undermining.
So now that's in a Commonwealth, though.
That's in Pennsylvania. I'm speaking about Pennsylvania because that's the market that I know and that I've been involved with since day one. I used to have a lot of influence when it was 40 different companies, right? I had CEOs' phone numbers on my phone, and I could elicit change in their behavior on a back channel sort of way. But when these MSOs came in and bought everybody out, I don't know anybody. I have no influence over their behavior anymore, but I do call them out on their BS. Every time I see them doing something shady, I'm letting people know about it, and I have elicited change that way. Although it made me sort of the Ralph Nader of cannabis in Pennsylvania. Okay, I'm an educator, and I'm high enough profile that they can't ignore me, but they don't like me because I call them out on their crap. I call them out on their quality and on their pricing and on all the shady stuff like keeping out their flour before they package it and all of these things. It has been a feeling like Don Quixote. Okay, I'm exhausted trying to tilt at windmills in a state where the fix is in. Okay, and I'm worried that Florida's going down that same path because Republicans are dominating the entire market, and you're going to have the same issue. You're going to have like three or four companies that are going to own the entire supply chain. You won't have any entrepreneurial opportunities in Florida.
So yes, 100%. I mean, when I say that, you're going to have no entrepreneurial opportunities. There's nothing. So the bill, I just want to say, the bill that's currently presented, there is no home grow for Florida, of course, because that's a little bit more control. If you can home grow, that means you're not going to buy. I think it really is beneficial for the state to have home grow because not everybody can grow. To grow is not easy. It is difficult. You know, some people just have to be born with that skill. And in that, people are going to spend the money and buy the equipment, buy the lighting, buy the whatever is required, and then they're going to fail and go back to the dispensaries. That's how I look at home grow. Give people the opportunity to at least grow their own medicine, but no home grow here in Florida. Also, no new licenses. Like no new licensing at all. No minority licensing, no social equity licensing.
Exactly now, what Pennsylvania is going to have. That's what I mean. It's the same companies. It's
a lot of control. And this, by the way, the bill. I just want to mention the bill that has been supported, the Safe and Sound Florida, or I think whatever it's called. It's been promoted by Trulieve. Trulieve being the largest Florida retailer of cannabis. Of course they want to control it. Now, I'm not downing anybody because they're taking the opportunity where opportunity is, and this is a law that needs to be passed already. And when I say that, any opportunity we can get towards recreational, take it. And we can argue and fight once it's in. But if it's not in yet, it's going to take us a long time to get it there. If it's not in there, we still have hurdles, more years ahead of us before we get it in. So get it in. Show it's better than alcohol. Let's get educational to be a front runner in the recreational market. Let's do what Canada did not do. Look, Canada should have gone educational right from the start. Canada should have taken the forefront of this and said, you know something? We are testing, we are growing, we are researching. Let's educate our consumers, not just sell a product and oversell a product and then price ourselves out of the market. That's what happened. Look, Florida is a controlled market in that they're not influenced by any other part of the United States. And we have a market with one of the largest discretionary incomes of retiring individuals. But you have to change the mindset of them before they become a consumer. They have years of programming that had sent them down the wrong direction.
You got to remember, though, seniors are the largest growing demographic of medical cannabis users in the country. Okay, there are people I'm a Gen Xer. I'm an early Gen Xer. I was born in '68. My dad is 80 years old, and he vapes every single day of his life. The guy was a hippie when I was growing up, so I always grew up around the smell of cannabis.
He's vaping rosin, I hope.
Huh? He does carts. He likes carts, and I've tried to get him off carts, but he's 80 years old, and he's going to do what he likes to do. So, you know, I try and steer him towards like hash rosin carts, you know, a little more full spectrum. But you know, again, he likes what he likes, right? So I try to help him out. And luckily for me, even though Pennsylvania's market is ridiculously overpriced and the quality sucks, I only live 4 hours from the biggest market in the country. You know, Michigan surpassed California's market cap last year. They're the largest cannabis market in the country, bar none. Okay. And the only problem that I see with them is they have an oversaturation because the cost of entry to get a license is very low there, and they favor small business people over the corporations. They only gave the corporations 48% of the market. The rest of it's all protected for residents who want to start a small to medium business. My favorite dispensary is called Allswell. It's in Adrian, Michigan. They're vertically integrated. They grow it in the back, they process it in the middle, they sell it out the front, all at the same location. And the quality of their stuff is
See, in that, all vertical
unbelievably good.
integration, all MSO, it's not bad.
They're not an MSO. They're a small local business that just vertically integrated for right there. They don't go to other states. They only have 4 locations in all of Michigan. But the quality of their solidness, their hash rosin, is amazing for the price they're selling it for. It is a fifth the price that it is here in Pennsylvania. So I can't even press flour that cheap. Okay, so that's why I go to Michigan, because I can only get paid once a month. I have to stock up for an entire month's worth of medicating, and I get most of the biggest bang for my buck comes from going to Michigan. It's worth the 4-hour drive, you know. And I think you're going to find, as time goes on and the market continues to decline in Pennsylvania, even when they go full rec, because the quality sucks, it'll be a race to the bottom for pricing, but people are still going to care about quality to a certain extent, and they're just not going to see it here in PA, unfortunately. You know, I hope Florida does better.
Okay, wait, I do have to mention something really quick. Wait, I have to mention this, and you said it. And I want people paying attention to the show that are watching on LinkedIn, business owners, CEOs, decision makers, marketing departments. Listen to what he just said. A cannabis user is so different from any other retailer. Why? Because they will drive 4 hours for some good weed at a good price. This is not a customer like any other. So when you're looking at a demographic, you're looking at a location. If you have a good product with a good marketing push towards the community, towards education, towards good bud and good terpenes and good landrace strains. Oh, I wish landrace strains. Holy shit. I would drive 8 hours, 16 hours. You know something? I've flown overseas before for a landrace strain. So yes, cannabis consumers are so different from anybody else on the market. If you take nothing else from this conversation, understand it's about quality. It's about love for the plant. It's about education for the plant. And people will drive. They will fly. They will travel for really good weed. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Let me tell you, the future of cannabis, in my opinion, is not the mass market. It is the small batch artisanal grower or processor who cares enough about the plant to not care if it's marketed to 1,000 different dispensaries. They're putting their love into these plants and into the way that they're handled from seed to packaging. Okay, it's handled with respect. And when you handle this plant with respect, she gives you amazing medicine. You know, I look at making flower rosin as taking the soul and bringing the soul of that plant out in a concentrated form. That's how I approach pressing.
Yeah, I do.
With respect to the
I want to mention when he's saying rosin and what he's doing, it's full spectrum. You're getting a whole cannabinoid presence. Instead of just getting a distillate, just THC or just CBD or a combination of smaller cannabinoids because it's been processed out because of heat or other
chemical
butane,
stripping
ethanol.
yeah.
you're getting a pure product. That's a big deal. That's more than a big deal. That changes the way we should be smoking or should be using our cannabis. I look, today I brought again, I want to mention, it's an easy Sherlock Holmes looking pipe, one button that I press twice, heats it up, I smoke it, and I'm able, now, I do want to mention, I'm able to get a full cannabinoid presence within my body and have it assimilate in properly. Eric, quick question. At the temperature at which you're pressing, are we how high is that temperature, and are we losing any
Okay,
cannabinoids in
well,
that?
here's the thing. There's as many different ways to press rosin as there are guys doing it. Everybody finds their own particular process. Now, some people are more dynamic with their temperature profiles. When I was first starting to do this, I was like that. I wanted to find the exact temperature that that particular strain liked at that moment, and it got to be very convoluted. So I realized that it isn't about time and it isn't about temperature as much as it is about watching what the plant's doing. Because if you're pressing at a higher temperature, you just leave it on for less time and you go more aggressively in your pressure to get it off the heat faster. But the way that I press, my particular profile, I like pressing at 190 Fahrenheit. Okay. I get excellent results, excellent terpene retention, and really good just overall quality. But I vary the amount of time based on what the plant is showing me. See, when I'm pressing, I'm watching very intently at that little sliver where I can see the bags, and I've got it really brightly lit. If you watch my videos, you'll see how I push in towards it. As long as I'm applying pressure and it's moving across the plates, it's migrating away from the bags, it's still extracting. But when I apply pressure and it doesn't move anymore, it's done. Pull it off the heat. Okay? If you're looking at a timer, you're not watching when the plant's telling you she's done. And if you're keeping it on the heat too long, that's when you're destroying terpenes and the quality. You want it on there just long enough to get the medicinal value removed from the plant material. And that is not a cookie cutter formula like Nug Smasher would have you believe based on the videos that they put out, because they're trying to sell you a piece of equipment. So they try to get people to press a certain way because it helps them to sell more stuff. My videos, I recommend the press I use because I use it and it gets used a lot. Gets used and taken places, and it still just cranks out
And what's
amazing
the press?
quality rosin.
What do you use?
Huh?
What do you use, if you don't mind telling us?
I can show you if it'll let me turn the camera around. I don't know if it will. Let me see if I can do that real quick.
I love that. See how ready he is? He will be at a library near you
we're
doing a demonstration,
studio, okay?
pressing.
We're in my rosin studio, and
he is ready.
Let me see. Will it let me turn the camera around? Okay, if not, okay. So here it is. This is my table. I take this, folds down and fits into the back of my Tahoe, and I take this whole thing to events, and I show people how to press rosin using my 20-ton rosin press. This is from Rosin Press, New York, RPNY. The only wear item on this whole thing are these. I go through about 2 of these a year. And I just go up to Harbor Freight, I grab a couple of 20-ton bottle jacks, and that's why I don't get the fancy ones with the, what do you call it, the hydraulic rams and stuff, because those require a lot more maintenance. So.
No, that's incredible. I love that. That's fantastic.
That machine is
no
here
gauges,
and it's available.
so it's all by touch.
And I have patients who come here with their dispensary flower. But where I really get to have fun is the growers. See, I know just about every marquee grower within 200 miles of here. They all come through my studio because they want to see what the quality of their flower is made into rosin before they worry about trying to wash it into hash. So I can give them a really good kind of quick, idea of what the quality is going to be like. And if it isn't good, then they can turn it into edibles or something else. But what rosin makers have a very particularly high standard that we have to use, because trichome heads have to be there. They have to be numerous. They have to be large. They have, there's a lot of criteria when you're trying to make it solventlessly that they don't have to worry about when they're just blasting it with propane or butane, because they're just chemically stripping everything out, destroying it. That's why they got to add terpenes back in at the end. Same thing with distillates. They distill everything down to nothing, and then they add stuff back in. That's not real medicine to me. See, this process to me is treating the plant with the most respect possible, and in doing so, you get the highest quality medicine. Okay, you have to love this plant in order to spend the time it takes to get good at pressing. Anybody with a hair straightening iron and some parchment paper can make rosin. Okay, let me make that clear. But to make rosin high quality consistently, you need specialized equipment that I have. Okay, and I have my electronic microscope, because again, the rosin's only as good as the starting material. I warn people about never bring me street flower ever, because I don't care who they say where they it came from the West Coast. Well, that's fine. All the West Coast stuff failed testing. That's why it's back here. Okay, or it's hemp that's been sprayed with distillate. Okay, a lot of that stuff is what's being sold on the street, which is why I only deal with dispensary flower in unopened containers, so I know that it's clean, or I deal directly with growers that I know personally, and I know how they grow, and they have, they have quality that I consider viable for pressing. See, there's smokable quality, and then there's pressable quality. Pressable quality is a whole tier higher. So what most people would consider great weed for smoking may not cut it for pressing. And not every strain presses particularly well. It's just genetics. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to determine whether it's economically viable or not.
I got a question in terms of just like getting to the point where something can be pressed.
Sure.
Like I'm picturing, and as a cannabis novice, like the flower, and then getting to sort of that gooey, rosiny sense, like that period. Say if I were to, have some parchment paper and a, hair iron, like what exactly would I be pressing, and like what situation gets me from the flower bud to the thing.
Okay, so let's go from harvest. Okay, so you cut down your plant, you hang it up, and you dry it for 10 to 12 days, right? 60, whatever. When it's dried, the day you're going to put it into jars to start curing it, okay? Curing takes anywhere from 20 days, 25 days, right? If you're going to give it a nice cure for smoking.
Cure.
But
what do you mean?
Curing is allowing the bud to get its chlorophyll gone over time by respiration, and you burp the containers to switch out the air, okay, and allow that to escape. And eventually what you get is a bud that's perfectly dried and perfectly cured and ready to smoke. But when you're pressing rosin, you don't want those trichome heads any more oxidized than they have to be, because the more oxidized the trichome heads get,
those are on the flower.
Those are on the flower. That's the little crystal-y things that you see that glisten when you look at a bud under light. When you look at those under a microscope, they are bulbous, liquid-filled sacs on the end of a stalk. And there's just so many of them that it makes it glisten in the light. But that's why you look at it under a microscope, so you can see what the structure of it is. They're different shapes. They're different sizes. And if there's a problem with the flower, if they use PGRs, plant growth regulators, which is a no-no, that shows up because the trichome heads will be misshapen. They won't be round. They will be oddly kind of almost angular because of the way those PGRs work on that flower. So having an electronic microscope like I have is absolutely essential if you want to do this for other people, because the whole point of this is you need the cleanest, highest quality starting material. Otherwise, if I was to press street flower that had been sprayed or failed testing, I'm concentrating the toxins when I make rosin. So you literally can hurt some or kill somebody if you press bad flower into rosin and then they vape that. Okay, so I'm very strict about what I'm willing to press, and I inspect everything very closely because my name goes on the jars, man. This is my brand. Okay, so if it comes out of my place with my face on it, it's going to be the highest quality. Okay, that's what I'm about. But I
How
don't
do they get a
sell
hold
any
of
of
you?
this. All I do is do this for patients for free. Now, growers, I charge them 25 an ounce to press their flower. Okay, so I can process about a quarter pound an hour through that machine. So when I'm making money, a grower will give me a consignment job to press X amount for them. I'm making $100 an hour doing this. You know, but it's not steady work. It's harvest times, and or a grower gets a new strain that they want to invest in making into concentrates. But those are all some of the best growers and the best quality around, and none of it is in the program. They're all small batch artisanal growers who got excellent genetics and treat them with love and treat the plants with love at every stage of the game. And you can tell that in the rosin. You can't make good concentrates from shitty weed. It just comes down to that.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And yeah, just the attention that's given. Because I always heard things like, oh, love in, love out for the plant, but I didn't realize the complexity of growing cannabis and how much it's literally like a lot of attention to detail as it goes. Because like the less attention you got, it's like the more variation there could be, the less precise you can be with the cutting and the drying and all of that. But once you get that flower, then the pressing process, because I was asking about the trichomes. From there, do you pluck the trichomes and then
No,
I'm
no, no, no. You take the buds and you try not to break them up too much, but you have to break them up a little. You want to get rid of any stems. You don't want anything poking through your bag, right? And you put them into the bag. You weigh it up to whatever the bag is set. They're different size bags for different amounts, right? So I'm usually pressing half ounces. So I've got 14-gram bags. I load my 14 grams in as whole as possible. You don't ever press smalls or ground up flour or anything like that, because it acts as a sponge and it doesn't want to let the rosin go. It tries to, when you release the pressure, it tries to suck it back in. So big buds press better. That's a best practices. Okay, and so I get them into the bag and I kind of hand squish it down so it'll fit between the plates. I've got the plates already. Everything's preheated to 190 Fahrenheit, and then I start applying pressure. A little aggressively at first, but then you start feeling some resistance, and then you slow everything down. And that's when you start watching what the bag is doing, because you'll start seeing it get wet on the edge, and then you'll see the oil start to extract out from the bag. Then you start adding pressure a little at a time, watching it the entire time. As you're applying the pressure, you will see the oil kind of move and like this away, and it migrate across the plate away from the center. Once you apply pressure to the point where it doesn't move anymore, it's done. You pull it off the heat, you cool it off, you gather it up, and you jar it, and you let it cure. You're good to go. Now it's immediately usable, but it tastes better if it cures for a day or so. It lets the waxes and lipids kind of realign as it relaxes. But the nice thing about it is the transformation between the buds into the concentrate, I coined that term. I turn green into gold, because that it's almost like being an alchemist. You're taking a base material and you're making a product that's so much more valuable. So it is essentially that. I'm basically eliminating the need for you to have to combust that plant in order to medicate from it, by getting all the medicinal value out of it and away from the plant material that you don't need to be putting into your body. What you need is what I get it, out of it. And that
Is there
has
anything?
all of the terpenes, all of the flavonoids, every bit of medicinal values now in that jar. And it's much more efficient, because I used to have to smoke an ounce a day to efficiently medicate. Back when I was still smoking flower, I go through about a gram of concentrate a day. Okay. I can get a gram of concentrate from an eighth if it's the right eighth. Okay. That's a 28% yield, and that's what I shoot for. I shoot for strains that are giving me about a gram per eighth or more back, because those tend to be your cakes, your cookies, your GMOs. The genetics of those have very large terpene or large um, man, I'm really high right now.
The trichomes?
Trichome heads, thank you. Large trichome head sizes, and there's usually very dense amounts of them throughout the bud, not just on the surface. So those strains, when you press them, I'm getting 30% yields and better sometimes, which are really, really big yields for flower rosin. Hash rosin's a different math, because they only get 3 to 5%, 7% back when they're washing bubble, right? But when you press bubble hash, you're getting 80% return, 85% return, because it's nothing but trichome heads. And what you're doing is filtering them further and tempering them. That's what making hash rosin is, once you get the bubble. But it's not
So
as
you said the trichomes
transformative a
almost like
thing to me as watching you go from buds to something that's almost indistinguishable from the hash rosin, you know? And
yeah.
only connoisseurs are really going to notice the difference in quality. Okay. You're talking 80 to 90% of the way to hash rosin if you do flower rosin properly. And I've taken it about as
that's a
far
big
as
deal.
it goes. Okay. I pressed the
In markets
37
like Florida,
micron
only
bags.
connoisseurs really know.
Exactly. So I'm not worried about the snobs that tell me that what I do isn't as good as what they do, because what I do is patient focused, not profit driven, and not about being famous or anything else. It's about giving patients what they need in their time of need.
So now
That's what I've always been
that's my
about.
next question. How do they get a hold of you?
Oh, I'm on
How do people get a hold of you?
Instagram,
Where do they find
Facebook,
you?
LinkedIn. I mean, I have
In the chat, put it all. Put all your links if you can, or do we? I should have gotten them ahead of time.
I have a
But of
dot
course,
card,
I'm.
that has. I have one of those dot cards where you scan the little thing and then it takes you to a landing page that has all my links on it.
Like a
But I'm
QR
real
code.
easy to find. You look at Asher's Finest Rosin on Instagram, Facebook, any of that stuff. I always post the events I'm going to be attending. I'm going to be at 420 at a glass shop in Greensburg, Premier Glass. In May, I'm going to be at the Monroeville Convention Center, 2-day event for the Steel City Cannabis Convention. I'm going to be a speaker there, and I'm going to be pressing rosin all day. So it's going to be a great time. And then in August, we have the Pittsburgh Cannabis Festival. That's an outdoor event, and it's the biggest cannabis event in Western Pennsylvania. It's the 4th annual, and I've been the headliner at that event ever since day one. I love going to these public events and meeting people and showing them something cool. Going to libraries and having parents bring their kids up to watch what I'm doing. It's not scary or intimidating when you explain to them the process, and it's so simple. It's mechanical. It's not dangerous. You can't blow yourself up making rosin. You know what I mean? So there's all of that stigma is taken away from making better medicine. And I just love doing that. Oh, cool.
Right there.
Awesome.
Yeah, see, that's awesome. That's awesome, right there. I wish I was as fast. Andrew's like quick. He's up there. He's like, got
It's
it,
not,
done.
yeah, it's not
And
the
that's
toughest
look. If you want to
process.
follow the guy, this is where you get more information. You can see his videos. He shows you how he presses. And if you are into pressing rosin, wow.
But we,
Even if you are a grower and you want to see that final process, I love that you're checking things under a microscope. But before I say anything else, I want you to talk about your end goal,
okay,
because your end goal here
yeah.
is to do something for the
Okay,
community.
so
And all of this, because all of this, he's raising money or raising funds or putting together efforts towards build. And I'm going to summarize it. You give the whole thing. Building a tiny home community for single veterans to recuperate, re-educate, and recommunicate with the community. So please tell us about this. I mean, I know it's in
yeah,
process.
well, okay,
You know,
so
you've got nothing set in stone, but you
right.
need you need some funding from a corporation, especially Okay, talk to
Well,
us.
actually, okay. So here's the thing. Uh, I've I've been disabled since the Gulf War. Okay, just because the VA didn't recognize it until 2010. My health has been bad for a long, long time. Cannabis saved my life. And in 2018, when I decided to start my brand, Asher's Finest Rosin, okay, it wasn't with the idea of getting rich or selling to the masses. It was with the idea that education destigmatizes this plant and puts us all in a better position. And if I'm ever in the position where I can take what I love doing, which is making rosin, and ever make any real money at it, every dime, 100% of those proceeds are going to go into building housing for homeless veterans, single homeless veterans. Now, at first, I wanted to do a tiny home community. That was my first iteration of this, and it has evolved over time. And the reason it had to was because other people who have endeavored to do these things in the Pittsburgh area have run into roadblocks, NIMBY, that nobody wants a group of veterans in their neighborhood or anywhere near them. So what I found out was that COVID kind of opened up an opportunity that still exists today. When it shut down travel for 2 years, a lot of motels and hotels went out of business. The thing about those places is they're not near residential areas, so there's nobody to complain that there's a bunch of veterans occupying what used to be a Motel 6, let's say. So you buy these old motor lodges and old hotels, you put a kitchenette in them, and now they become studio apartments. They already have bathrooms, they already have air conditioning. You put a small kitchenette in them, and now you've got 200 units that you can get 200 single veterans off the street, give them a permanent place to live if they want it to be, not temporary the way the VA does or other organizations that do very good work. I'm not throwing shade on them, but none of them give a veteran something permanent that they can claim as their own, and kind of gives them a ground, a grounding. When you know that you own what you're living in and that somebody can't take it away from you or price you out of it by raising your rent all the time, it gives you the opportunity to open up to some of the help that you might need, because your immediate essential need of shelter is now covered. Okay, so I'm looking at trying to solve this on a permanent basis. And the nice thing about doing the hotel idea rather than the tiny home community is hotels have lobbies and banquet rooms and things like that we could bring services to them. Mental health services, financial services, veterans health services. We could bring them to the veterans instead of having to try and piecemeal these guys to get them to VA medical centers that intimidate them and are environments that they don't find comfortable, so they don't open up and they don't try to get the help they need. If they're in their own place and you bring help to them, it might facilitate more people getting help. Now, I personally, I am and like I said, my health isn't great, so I'm not looking to spearhead any of this. This was a concept that I want to put out there to any nonprofit or even cannabis industry companies that want to turn this concept into a reality, because it's very simple. You buy distressed or shut down hotels, all those motor lodges alongside highways and stuff, they're not anywhere near residential areas, so you get no pushback from the local people. You renovate those places, and then you put offices in there where veteran services officers can put their offices right where these veterans live, instead of in a faraway office that they have to get to. And watch what happens to these veterans when they know they have a permanent spot that's their own, that they're not obligated to, that they don't have to produce anything. We are taking care of them in the way that they were supposed to be taken care of. When you put your life on the line and either your mental or your physical health suffers because of that service, this country has fallen down in its commitment to taking care of those who fight for the freedoms that you all enjoy. Okay? I'm trying to do what little I can by putting this out there and hoping that a company will make this happen. I don't have to have my name on it. I'm not looking to be famous, but my idea is to raise awareness and hopefully put a high enough profile on it that somebody will say, hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to reach out to him and maybe we'll talk to him and see if we can get something going. But I'm not trying to raise money on my own. I have no energy for that type of activity. Okay? Going to these events, networking with as many people as I can, and trying to get this idea out there to as many people as possible, hoping that somebody will see that it has value. That trying to get rich isn't always should be the end goal. Try to help some people. Over 30% of homeless people are veterans. The VA doesn't know how to help these people long term. They'll take them off the street like they did with me for a year, maybe, in a domiciliary, then kick you back out on the street with you're cleaned up now. They don't have the capacity to help you long term. That's what I want to change. I want nonprofits to permanently fund the ongoing cost of running a hotel as an apartment building, so that we don't have to get grants from the federal government or any of that shit. Let's do this without the federal government's help. Let's do this look, these cannabis MSOs, they need help getting their less than stellar reputations turned around. You want to help? You want to help make that happen? Fund something like this. Put your own name on it. I don't give a shit if what name appears on it. I just want to know that I did the right thing by putting that idea out there, because that's all I can do as a single individual. I don't have a nonprofit agency surrounding me. I've been a freelance educator and advocate and lobbyist since 2016. Well, actually earlier than that in Florida. So I've never been about money. I don't solicit donations from people. People have donated to me at events and stuff, but I never ask for donations of any kind, because that's not what this is about for me. It's about education. It's about being a good steward to the plant, My brand, all my stickers, I hand that shit out to people. I pay for all that. I don't sell any swag or any of that stuff. Everything I make, all the little jars, these are all recycled dispensary jars. Why throw them away? I just bought stickers. I wash them out. I put rosin in them. I put my sticker on them. I'm doing my part to try and be a good steward here. Unfortunately, because of the fact that I speak out against the MSOs and I speak out against the corruption in Pennsylvania, I have been really marginalized last couple of years, especially. So I don't worry about that anymore. I just try to keep going to as many events as I can physically manage to get to in a year. Try to keep being that good steward, and hopefully we'll see some positive changes. Unfortunately, I think Pennsylvania is pretty much doomed, but maybe at the federal level, if they don't screw up and reschedule this thing, I think that's going to be a bad situation for everybody, except pharmaceutical companies and your MSOs. Okay. But that's a whole other discussion for a whole other time. I really appreciate you guys having me on here. You know, I do.
Oh, really? Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you coming on here. And I'd love to even have you back on again.
Oh, anytime, man. And if you're ever in the Pittsburgh area, I'd love to see you at one of the events, like maybe the Pittsburgh Cannabis Festival.
Look, I'm going to be traveling soon,
but you know,
I'm actually
like
going to be
May,
possibly, you know, maybe some big things are happening. We don't know. I love to travel. I love to go to different markets, especially maybe Colorado, New Mexico.
I've never been there.
You know, there's a lot of hot things happening out there, and I want to be part of it. Anyways, I am excited to see what next steps you're going to have. And by the way, I can't hear anything over here. I just want you people. I just want you to know, I hear nothing right now. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's like straight rain.
No, it's blocking it out.
And I'm in a metal roof. I don't even know what's happening anymore. It's like I can see your mouths moving at this point, and okay. Anyways, I just want to say thank you for being on the show. You talk. I'm going to go quiet.
Hey, I hope everybody stay safe, stay medicated, and be good to each other out there. We need more kindness in the world.
And we're going to have him back on the show again.
Take care, gentlemen.
Hey, thank you